Obsession does not begin where most people think it does. See a lot of people walk into rooms trying to be impressive, loud, memorable. They reveal everything about who they are, what they do, what they want. It is all out there on the table, and they think that kind of exposure makes people interested. But it does not. It makes people bored because it kills tension, and tension is everything. Nobody becomes obsessed with someone they can fully understand on the first encounter. What we chase, what we replay in our heads again and again are the mysteries, the question marks, the ones who drop something powerful just enough to wake up our curiosity, but not enough to satisfy it. Real obsession begins with suspense. You create intrigue by revealing just a glimpse of depth and then pulling it away before they can see the full picture. If someone can explain you, define, you put you in a box after talking to you for 5 minutes, then you did it wrong. You were too eager, too open, too loud. You gave away the very thing that makes you special, which is the unknown. Because let me tell you, it is the unknown that drives people crazy. It is the blank space that keeps them up at night. Not the information you give, but the parts you leave out. That is where the hook is. You want to be remembered. You want people thinking about you long after you leave the room. Then give them something to think about without ever giving them the full answer. Drop a line that makes their thoughts spin. Hold eye contact just a second longer than expected. Reveal brilliance in a flash. And then switch the subject. The greatest magnet is not perfection, it is unpredictability. We chase what we cannot figure out because we hate unfinished puzzles. Ambition grows in silence and mystery. Obsession is a deeply emotional response, and emotions are not triggered by facts or details. They are triggered by energy, by contrast, by moments that hit without warning, then vanish before they can be examined. That is what lingers. That is what people replay in their minds. You walk in and you reveal just enough to show them you are different, confident, aware, sharp, but then you stop. You pull back. You disappear before they can settle, before they can make sense of what just happened. And now something in them is unsettled, and that emotional imbalance becomes the root of obsession. They do not know why. They want more of you, they just do. And here is the truth. The mind cannot obsess over what it fully understands. Obsession grows in the space between clarity and curiosity. It needs something to wrap itself around. Something it almost understands, but not quite. So, if you give everything too soon, you eliminate the chase, you remove the friction, and without friction there is no fire. You ever meet someone who says so much about themselves that you lose interest halfway through, even if they are interesting, even if they are successful, it does not stick, because there is no edge, no restraint, no tension. When you are too easy to access, you get consumed and then dismissed too fast. And once you're dismissed, you are forgotten. And once you're forgotten, your power is gone. But if you present yourself like a riddle, like a beautiful question, wrapped in confidence and contradiction, then you become unforgettable and unknowable at the same time. And that mixture is what keeps people coming back, not for who you are, but for who they think you might be. For what they believe they can unlock if they stick around long enough. And that gives you leverage, it gives you control, because when people are obsessed with figuring you out, they are no longer paying attention to anything else. They lean in closer, they remember your words, they analyze your signature. Your presence carries weight, not because it is consistent, but because it is unpredictable and just out of reach. That is your edge. And you do not need to be anyone other than who you are. You just need to stop showing it all at once. Anchor yourself in substance, but deliver it with subtlety. Your silence is part of your charm. Your restraint is part of your weapon. You are not here to satisfy curiosity. You are here to spark it and then vanish before they can ever get their answers. Obsession starts when you disrupt their expectations, when you do not respond the way others do, when you do not give them easy access, when your presence feels earned, not given. That is how you make people remember you long after you are gone. And that is where the game truly begins. Let me break something down for you. Most people are trying to stay in front of others as long as they can. They are trying to be present, trying to stay visible. They think the longer they show up and perform and pour themselves into someone, the more attachment they will create and the more respect they will earn. But that is not how real obsession is built, because obsession is not born out of consistency. It is born out of contrast and timing and withdrawal. See, if you want them to crave you, you never give them the full buffet. You give them one taste of something unforgettable, and then you pull it away. You leave them with a flavor they cannot name and cannot replace. And while they are trying to figure out what it was, you are already gone, walking away like it never even happened. And now they are left holding this emotional high without a way to reach it again. When you give someone a concentrated dose of brilliance, of charm, of intensity, of presence, it hits them deeper than if you had spread it out over time. Because what is rare feels more powerful when it appears briefly and then disappears. It becomes significant. It becomes etched in their memory, not because they had you, but because they lost you before they were ready. And this is what people do not understand about influence. You do not need to be everywhere all the time to own space in their mind. You just need to show up once in a moment that matters, say something no one else would say, make them feel something they did not expect, and then vanish before they can fully understand it. That is how the mind locks in. That is how memories overpower logic. People remember the ones who interrupted their patterns, the ones who walked in at just the right moment, said something sharp, something vulnerable, something bold, then left before it could lose its edge. The power is in appearing bright and then disappearing fast, not slowly fading out, but vanishing while the room is still echoing from your words, while the energy is still rising, because that leaves them frozen in a state of emotional suspense. Give them a glimpse of intensity, and then let that energy haunt them, whether it is one conversation, one evening, one message. It only takes one flash to plant the seed of obsession, but the mistake people make is they stick around too long. They keep talking, keep showing up, trying to maintain the high, and the more they pour it on, the more they dilute the effect, and slowly the mystery turns into something manageable. And manageable is not memorable. You want to disrupt that. You want to drop energy and momentum, and then stop. You want them to replay the moment over and over, because it never got closure, because it never settled, because it never reached another peak. You want them to crave another conversation, crave more of that presence, more of that wisdom, more of that emotional electricity. And the only way to create that craving is to remove access. There is something primal about unsatisfied desire. It does not fade easily. It sticks and grows, especially in silence. Especially when they thought something more was coming and then nothing came. You gave them brilliance and they expected more, and your silence became louder than your words. And now everything they do is about trying to get back to that original high, that original moment you gave them. Most people use up their best too early. They try too hard to impress, too hard to hold attention. But if you give one perfect hit and then disappear, you are no longer a person. You become a question. Something they have to answer. A moment that keeps replaying inside of them, trying to find resolution. And the more they try, the more you dominate space in their thoughts. And understand this, it is not about being fake. It is about being rare. If you are authentic and powerful and sharp and intentional, give that part of you for a brief moment and then move back into the shadows. It gives you presence without performance, power without pressure. It puts you in control of the narrative. Because you are not waiting around to see who noticed you. You create impact and let the silence do the rest. It is timing that makes something unforgettable, and the best exit is right after the peak, not after the applause ends, but while it is still rising. They will remember what you said, how you looked, how you made them feel, because the moment never finished, and unfinished moments live forever. And that is how you make an impression that becomes a fixation. One of the most misunderstood things about human nature is that people only value what they feel they might lose. We are wired not just to want what is good, but to chase what feels like it can disappear at any moment. And that right there is the lever you pull if you want to trigger deep emotional intensity in someone, Because obsession is not just about presence, it is about absence and the space in between. You want to know how desire works? It works on distance. It runs on contrast. When something is too close for too long, people stop feeling its value, stop feeling its weight. And the truth is, the more available you become, the less they chase you, because chasing only happens when something starts to drift. Chasing begins when access is interrupted. And the moment people feel like they no longer control you is the moment they start trying to figure out how to get that control back. You do not need to always be moving toward people to make an impact. Sometimes the real power is in leaning back, timing your distance, pulling away just enough to make them reach a little more. And in that reach comes emotional investment. And in that investment comes attachment. And when they are invested, they do not even realize they are increasing their own obsession with you. You see, we live in a culture that celebrates attention. Everybody wants to give attention and get attention. But here is the truth. Attention is a resource. It is like currency. The more you spend it, the more you lose its value. And the more someone expects it from you, the more it becomes normal instead of special. So you want to be smart about what you give and when you give it. The biggest mistake people make once they get someone interested is they over-deliver. They pour too much in too soon, out of fear that the connection might fade. And what they do not realize is that overexposure is the fastest way to kill intrigue. What people chase is not routine. What people chase is surprise, uncertainty. The feeling that there is always something just out of reach. That is what keeps curiosity alive. Control distance, and you control desire. Think about it. When someone gives you all their time, all their energy, all their thoughts, immediately, you begin to take it for granted, not because you are ungrateful, but because we adapt fast, we get used to anything. You see it all the time. People get tired of luxury, they get bored of beauty, they stop appreciating what stays too close for too long. But the moment that thing steps away, changes, becomes less accessible, everything shifts. Suddenly your mind starts playing it back, questioning why it left, what it meant, what you could have done differently. And your emotions dial up, not down, because the story is no longer safe and predictable. It is alive with tension, and when something feels uncertain, it takes up space in your head. So here is how it works. You create proximity, you give energy, you spark emotion, and you watch the moment. Their hunger reaches its peak, and then you regulate the connection. You step back just enough not to confuse, not to punish, but to create space for reflection, space for longing, and in that space their desire intensifies, because now the reward is no longer guaranteed. And this does not mean playing hard to get. This means being intentional with your presence. It means knowing when to leave before your value flattens, knowing when to make them miss you before they think they fully have you. It means shifting their experience of you from something expected to something rare. And in that rarity comes value, and in value comes obsession. People remember those who gave them contrast, those who brought intense presence and then disappeared, those who remained unpredictable, not chaotic, not dramatic, just quietly deliberate, moving in and out like a tide, pulling on their emotions until they were no longer sure if they were chasing you or chasing a feeling they only had when you were around. The key is timing. Withdraw too early and they forget you. Stay too long and they take you for granted. But when you master distance, when you understand the rhythm of showing up strong and then stepping back, you own the dynamic. You plant obsession not by being endlessly available, but by becoming a question that never fully gets answered. That is how you turn attention into tension and turn tension into value, and that is how you train their mind to chase you in your absence instead of getting comfortable in your presence. Because nobody chases what they think will always be there, they only chase what feels like it could disappear at any moment. There is a point where words lose their power, where presence becomes routine and actions get swallowed by repetition, and that is exactly when you pull the trigger and disappear. Not out of emotion, not out of anger, not out of fear, but out of total control. Because silence, when used right, is louder than anything you could ever say. And That silence becomes the echo that never leaves their mind. You see people become addicted to what they remember, not to what they understand. Obsession is not about access. Obsession is about effect. And when you disappear after creating an emotional imprint, you do not fade from memory. You get embedded deeper, because now you are no longer just a person. You become a story unfolding in their mind, a presence that keeps moving even after you are gone. The most powerful thing you can do after you have made someone feel something is to step away before it settles, when you disappear at your peak, not when they are ready, not when they expect it, but when they are still holding on to the moment, craving more of what just happened. You lock your presence into their emotional system in a way they cannot delete. They will go over the last words you said, try to decode your silence, rehearse imaginary conversations because you denied them resolution. And here is the key. The human mind hates unfinished moments. It hates open loops. It wants closure. It wants understanding. And when it does not get that, it becomes obsessed with filling in the blanks. And that is when you own them, not by giving answers, but by leaving questions. Not by constant interaction, but by controlled absence. You become more than a memory. You become a mystery. And mystery has gravity. It pulls at people's focus. It hijacks thoughts. It keeps them coming back without even knowing why. And the more they think, the deeper they go. And the deeper they go, the more power your silence carries. Because it is not just about what you said or did. It is about how you left them hanging in it. Most people chase clarity, thinking it builds connection. But too much clarity, too much presence, too much explanation kills desire. It satisfies curiosity and takes the life out of it. People need space to wonder, to imagine, to project their own story onto you, to create their version of you in their minds. And when you talk too much, when you stay too long, you destroy the image they are constructing and they lose interest. But when you go quiet, when you vanish after they have tasted something intense, when you say nothing when they expect something, everything changes. Your silence is no longer absence, it is power. Your withdrawal is not loss, it is leverage. They come looking, not because of what you said, but because of what you stopped saying. And it is not about revenge or games, it is about persuasion with precision. You are engineering effect, you are controlling the narrative, not by being active, but by becoming silent at exactly the right time. And sometimes, the best move is no move at all. Just stepping into the background while your presence continues to echo through their thoughts. Your silence makes them question, makes them imagine, makes them rewind the experience again and again. They wonder if they said something wrong, if they missed something, if they misread something. And what happens is your silence becomes a mirror. They start projecting pieces of themselves into the space you left. And now your power multiplies. Because it is not just about you anymore, it is about the version of you living in their imagination. You do not have to chase them, or explain, or give updates when you have built presence properly. Your silence will speak for you, and it will say more than any message ever could. It will make noise in their heads. When the world goes quiet, it will remind them of how they felt when you were near, and make them feel the emptiness where you used to be. This is the final phase of the obsession game. You start with intrigue. You spark interest through mystery. You elevate it with a burst of brilliance. You create an emotional tension with distance, and then you seal it all in with silence. And it is in that silence you become unavoidable. Because nothing makes a presence more powerful than the moment it disappears.